No, never. I mean, I think it's a good indication that no other state, no other country really, has successfully modeled it. I remember my dad used to get invited to Seattle and Hawaii and some states that were trying to figure out how they could duplicate what we've done here, and they all loved it. They all wanted to do it. They recognized this as a really important, valuable thing for an economy, but none of them could muster the political will to do it. And today, given the partisanship, it would be impossible to pass it.
The defining of everything as a winner or a loser.
Right. The perspective of this is something that will make our community better. It'll make all of us stronger together.
Yeah.
That approach is rare. It's not impossible, but it's rare. And there were people on both sides of the aisle. Right? My father. There were legislators, Republicans and Democrats from all over the metro. Some of them hated it, some of them liked it, but it wasn't partisan. It was at a time when they created the Met Council, when they were kind of really looking at how this metropolitan area is going to grow. They're deciding on where roads are going, they're deciding on where the airport's going, they're deciding on where the sewer systems are going, and they recognized, man, if we don't all work together and make this thing work as a unit, we're going to end up with a metropolitan system that isn't that attractive. They were very foresighted at that time to recognize that the quality of your community shouldn't be dependent on arbitrary factors like where do they decide to put the airport. Now, that decision,
and that was huge.
Yeah, impacted a ton of communities and made some better off and some worse off and different challenges. At the same time, they were debating, and no one wanted a park, right? Because a park was bad, because a park didn't produce any tax base. So no one in the area, they would happily take a power plant or any commercial industrial development instead of a park. And I think those people at that time also recognized that's a bad incentive. You don't want every city incented just to put up buildings and bowl over all their parks. And frankly, that was the reason we've got such great parks and lakes and open spaces in this community, is because of fiscal disparities doesn't make sure we don't punish cities for having open space that doesn't produce tax revenue. Well, givers and takers is just wrong. That doesn't reflect what it is. I like contributors. There are people who contribute, there are people who benefit. I think it's fair to say that a community benefits from fiscal disparities because a lot of them do. Thank heavens they do. And I think the brilliance of fiscal disparities is they didn't take away completely the incentive to grow and development. So if you're a contributor, that's a good thing still. Every city still would love to be a contributor because that means they've got a good, strong commercial industrial tax base, they're growing, they're thriving, their taxpayers are benefiting from that. So that's a good thing. So it's the law itself doesn't penalize you for growth. It just doesn't penalize the people who aren't able to grow for whatever reason, and often they're arbitrary, right? The lack of a decent highway, the distance from an airport, whatever. Or a river, right, exactly. So that was really the brilliance of it, is you're still rewarded for commercial industrial development, but it's not so much that you don't want a park or you don't, like St. Paul. If you happen to be the capital city and you've got a lot of non-tax-based buildings, it's not your fault the Department of Education or DNR or finance is all located in your city. As a result, you're not getting any taxes. That's just the way it was built. So St. Paul really benefits from fiscal disparities, and that's a good thing. And we'll have them wait a couple of years, and then they'll change their mind again. As we look at Minneapolis has gone between contributor and benefactor probably 10 or 20 times.
Really?
Yeah, they've been for a long time. They benefited from fiscal disparities. Now I think they're a contributor to it because they're successful. And 10 years from now, they may, as the suburbs grow, they may benefit from it again. So they've been a good example of cities that move back and forth across the line. And they've been pretty good, even when they're a contributor like I think they are now, they get that, hey, you know what, a few years from now, we may be needing this program again.
So stay the course.
Yeah, I mean, it's just short-sighted because now you're a contributor, now you want to get rid of the program? No, it doesn't make sense because we all benefit ultimately from it. Yeah, that's just wrong. That was not the intent. And if you read the Citizens League report back from '68 or all the discussions that were happening at the time, it was not about we need more money for economic development. It was tax base, which supports a lot beyond just economic development. Schools, for example, the tax base benefits, I would say, education as much as anything, and it equalizes education, which has always been a goal for Minnesota. It's been a really important kind of heart of the Minnesota education experience, is that we are the most fair, one of the most fair school systems in the country. In other words, we don't have these huge gaps between the wealthy and the poor school districts because we equalize the money. And fiscal disparities that's a basic starting point for school fairness and equity. It's one of the reasons the Anoka-Hennepin district is able to compete, because our tax base is a little higher because of fiscal disparities. So economic development is certainly an appropriate use of your increased tax base because of fiscal disparities, but it's really much bigger than that, broader than that. Every single thing that your tax base funds, including police and fire, education, basic services, infrastructure, that all benefits from fiscal disparities. And frankly, if you talk to companies who are recruiting people to a community, what do they want? What's the first thing they want, especially the spouse? Good schools,
Yep.
right? They have good schools? That's one of the first questions they ask a realtor. So you better take care of all those things, and fiscal disparities helps us compete at the school level as well as infrastructure and everything else.